G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. What's your biggest problem in drawing? I can't draw a straight line, I don't understand perspective, I can't get proportions right. I keep making so many mistakes I just don't want to finish the drawings. Or I can't draw cars, or people, or buildings. But I want to suggest I think you might be wrong. Not that they might not be areas of weakness for you, and that perhaps you benefit from some attention to them. But I'm not so sure they're your biggest problem, because I think almost everyone shares the biggest problem when it comes to their drawing. And if you've watched a few of my videos already, then you'll know in general terms at least what I'm about to say. But I'm going to show you a video clip of a drawing I did of a small village in Germany, which I think has the best example that I've ever come across of why this is such an important issue. And I must admit, when it happened while I was doing a live drawing for an IGTV video, afterwards I thought, I have to remember this example because it's such a good example of this. So we'll see that in a moment. Obviously, when we look at our reference and go to draw it, we think we've seen enough to draw it, or else we'd be looking some more. But the problem is we haven't learned just how much we have to see. And we genuinely think we've seen enough. But we haven't really seen everything that's in our reference. We've seen enough to have some idea, but what we've seen also triggers memories, either from experience or from other scenes we've looked at, with that same object. And the problem is we don't just see what's in front of us, but we also see the memories that we have, the past experiences we've had with that view or with that object. And the problem is, as similar as they might be, they're not this particular object or this particular viewing perspective. And so because I haven't seen exactly the one in front of me, and I'm influenced by memories and past experiences, then I'm going to draw something like it, possibly very much like it, but not quite. There's something going to be not quite right about my drawing compared to the reference. And maybe you know that feeling. We're very aware of learning the skills we need to draw, of holding and using a pen, of drawing lines, of drawing various lines, straight lines, curved lines, of understanding perspective. But we fail to appreciate just how specialized observing our subject in order to do a drawing is. It's very different to observing something for most purposes in life. And so we take for granted that that's simple and easy. And we fail to appreciate that when we're observing something to draw, there are particular things we need to find and observe before we put pen to paper. We have to find the points which will help us position all the various elements that we're going to draw accurately. We have to be able to observe in a way that checks alignment and see what measures up where, even in the face of apparent optical illusions, which we'll come to in our German village video in just a moment. But first, here's two quick examples that also illustrate what I'm saying. So we're drawing a tree and we have a quick look at the tree and go, oh yes, I know what a tree looks like. I've climbed them, I've cut them down, I've seen them everywhere. A tree's full of leaves with trunks. And very quickly we've stopped looking at this tree from this distance in this lighting condition, and we're just drawing this tree that's more from our memory, and not always a very accurate memory at that. Instead of asking ourselves, what am I seeing here? And how do I draw here what I'm seeing here with whatever I'm using to draw? And so we end up with something that looks more like this. Or if we're using different art materials, it might look more like this. But it won't ever look like this, unless we're wanting to do some sort of symbolic stylized tree. And then it's totally different. I see this problem with not observing exactly enough what's actually in front of us and combining what we do see with other memories of that object from different positions or other memories that connect with it. In the case of architecture, that can be memories of tutorials on perspective and the like. And so in this building here, we see that the perspective lines
stay the same the whole way down from the top of the building down to ground level on both sides. Now we know that doesn't happen really, and if we look at the reference, we can see that what does happen is that that perspective line is horizontal on eye level, and then slowly the angle increases as the lines move above, further away from eye level, in both directions. The issue isn't that the artist isn't capable of drawing the building the correct way, and it isn't that the artist isn't aware of perspective and hasn't studied perspective tutorials. The real issue, I would suggest, is that the artist has looked at this and gone, oh, I know what a building with this sort of perspective looks like, and particularly they've seen these stronger angled lines which are closer to being parallel than further down, and not carefully observed these less obvious perspective lines down here. Because if the same observation had been made down here as was made up there, it would have been seen quite clearly that the angle becomes more and more shallow until it's horizontal. There's nothing wrong with the drawing technique. I love this artist's drawing technique. It's got so much energy. It's so dynamic. But I do know that they weren't deliberately distorting the perspective. So let's go from this city scene to our German village, eh? And again, I'm now establishing a different perspective line for this second building, and we can see that it's actually quite a steep uphill perspective at the bottom of the window. It's not so steep for the actual road, because the road is still sloping down, which of course in this case means it's sloping up, but it's sloping up at less of an angle. So here we have this crazy road that's sloping down in life, but we're actually drawing lines that keep going up. So again, the importance of always looking carefully at our drawing and not thinking, oh, I know what that is. That's a road sloping down. That's going to look like this, because it's not always what we think. And here's how our German village street, which seemed to both slope away from us downwards, but have lines that went upwards all at the same time, looked at the end of the 1 hour drawing for IGTV.
Well, what do you think? Do you agree with me or not? Hey, if I'm right, the good news is that all of us are much better drawers than we think we are, that we probably have more drawing skills than we think, because the problem hasn't been our lack of drawing skills. It's been we haven't realised how much more we've needed to observe our subject. Can I make a suggestion? Can I suggest you draw 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 drawings where you deliberately spend twice as much time observing as you would normally, and see if that doesn't improve what you draw. And if you want a really good demonstration of what I'm talking about, then get your reference photo and turn it upside down and draw it upside down. Preferably a photo that someone else prints off for you so that you've never even seen it the right way up. Because when we do that, it forces us to look so carefully at our photo, and it disguises what's happening visually just enough that we're not tempted to think, oh, I know what that is, but it forces us to look at what's actually there before we put pen to paper, because it is confusing and it doesn't let us make hasty assumptions. I've done that exercise with portraiture with hundreds of students. They are always amazed at how great their portraits are compared to any they might have done in the past, or particularly for those who've never drawn any. So give it a go. Don't have a quick look. Don't look at the reference and then look at the paper and think, I know what that is, and draw from memory, because the memory is actually lots of memories, not the memory of just this particular drawing. I think it's a really exciting point, and I have at least 4 videos devoted to various ways of observing, so that we make sure we observe everything we need to find, or ways to help us observe better, because that's the skill we need to develop, learning to observe. Look, I hope this isn't just helpful. I hope this gives you even more fun when you draw, because you'll see yourself drawing better drawings. And if it works for you, please let me know in the comments. It's always so encouraging if I feel that some of the tips and thoughts I've given are helpful to people with their actual art. Okay, so draw, have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.